There's other miscellaneous things that you pay at closing. There's a portion of interest that you actually pay at closing, because your payments are due typically not the next month, but the following month when you get a mortgage. So if you were to close today, we're in the middle of January, your first payment would be due March 1st. So on March 1st, you would pay the principal and interest that accrued during the month of February. You always pay after the fact. You pay in arrears on a mortgage. Does that make sense? So on March 1st, you're paying the principal and interest that accrued during the month of February. But you're going to own the home from today, which is the middle of January, through the end of the month. So for that time frame, you would have to prepay that interest at closing. That's the only time you prepay on interest on a mortgage, at closing. I'm going to be in there for 15 days, so 15 days worth of interest, I'll pay that at closing. There may be other things involved too once we get into the property. The HOA could have fees, and depending on how it's negotiated, you might pay for those, the seller might pay for those. Your agent is going to highly recommend that you get a property inspection. Although it's not required for this particular loan, you probably want to do that, because the appraiser, as I mentioned, is different than the inspector. The appraiser's job is to let us know that the value of the home and the condition of the home is worth the collateral for the loan that we are issuing. So if there is a safety or health issue, something that would affect the value or the safety and health of the occupants, the appraiser is going to note it and either require it to be investigated or fixed. So in other words, if you go to purchase a home and it has a pool and there's no water in that pool, the appraiser is going to see a big hole in the ground filled with concrete. That's a health issue. It's a hazard. So before the appraiser is going to establish the value on that property fully, the appraiser is going to say, we want that pool filled. And if you fill that pool up and the pump doesn't work, now you just have a big pool of water in your backyard, which can be a health hazard. So the appraiser, before they issue the final value, is going to say, I want the pool to be in working order. So that things that the appraiser will definitely note. The inspector is going to go through the crawl spaces and plug in and check all the plugs and all the fans and all the light switches, and they're going to crawl around and get up on the roof, and they're going to do all kinds of things that the appraiser is not going to do. They're concerned with the functionality of the house. Is it functional? Does it meet current codes? Did it meet code at the time it was built? Are there things that they see as safety issues? This wiring was done by an amateur. You know, they inspect my house and they see these light switches and they turn them on and there's sparks. They're going to tell you, hey, you might want to have a licensed electrician come in here and verify that this home is safe. They might see damage from an old water leak, and they might not be able to determine how extensive that is. So they might then recommend that you get someone to come in and look for mold. The heating and cooling might be old, so they might recommend that you have a heating and cooling company come in and check the quality of that apparatus. So there's all kinds of things that can come into play. Your agent will have contacts for these people. They're part of your team. Some charge, some do not. Some have to be paid by you, some have to be paid by the seller. Depends on how it's all negotiated within the contract. Those things are not part of your closing costs that show up on your loan estimate. Because although we recommend you do all of them, they're not required by us. These things are required, so they're closing costs that show up on the loan estimate. Inspections and other things aren't. So when we start talking about saving money and we break these costs down, you're going to want to factor in a little bit of extra money for those. And then you also want to factor in some extra money for yourselves, because my guess is when you move in, you might want furniture. You might want to do some landscaping. You might want to paint. So the goal here is not to use your last dollar to get you into a house. Our goal is to put you into a home that has a balance of using enough of your savings to get you into a comfort level with your monthly payment. And that monthly payment is within your budget. And the remaining savings, the reserves, the money you have after closing, will help you with your needs and provide you with kind of a rainy day fund in case something happens and you're unable to make a payment for a month or two. Closing costs, things related to the transaction that are really required. Loan related are required because if you're getting the fact that you're getting a loan. Property related are really because you're getting a property. You're going to pay taxes on any property you purchase, whether you get a loan or not. Inspections and some of these other miscellaneous charges are things we need to budget for, but they're not going to show up anywhere on a loan estimate because they're optional. Highly recommended, but optional. So that's the difference between the closing costs and inspection costs and property related fees. Kind of make sense?